welcome to the Fantasy Rewind podcast. I'm your co-host, Dylan Stoll, and I'm joined as always by my friend Mike.
Hey!
So today, we're hopping back into the Wheel of Time with Season 2, Episode 5, titled...
Damane.
Alright, so before we dive into this episode, give out the typical reminders. If you want to get at us on our socials, on Instagram, we are at Fantasy Rewind Pod. On X, we are Fantasy Rewind. And the email is fantasyrewindpod@gmail.com. We're not very active, but we love to talk. So, without any further delay, Mike, let's hop into this rewind.
Fantasy Rewind. All right, Dylan, Season 5.
Season 2.
Or Season 2, Episode 5. Oh, man, I wish something like this episode was a season. This episode was so good. I did. Sorry, what did you think of this episode, Dylan?
So I can't agree with you more. I thought that for me, this episode marked a much-needed turning point in my view of the show for Wheel of Time versus how I had previously been enjoying the show. For me, I thought that this episode brought in so much lore, brought the story so much closer to where it was supposed to be in the books. It was like a balm to my Wheel of Time bruises and needs that I had been suffering from this last lackluster show until now. And now I am happy to say I'm genuinely enjoying the show pretty fully.
Oh, yeah. I would have to agree completely. I mean, you talked before in a previous episode how I just was like, this is based on the Wheel of Time. And it still is, but this episode really did align itself. And I think it let us know how the showrunners are trying to marry what the big events in the book and adapting it to TV and trying to get this entire series condensed into like 7 seasons or whatever they're trying to do.
Yeah.
So... well, let's jump right in. I do want to talk about the introductory bit in this episode. Because before the credits, or before the intro, we get Sue Roth returning to her Shan-Chan. And I loved this. They were all seated in this court. We had not the Emperor. Oh my gosh. Empress, may
Turok.
she live long and prosper. But we had Turok, the High Lord. And this interaction gave so much information about the Shan-Chan that we as readers knew, but the audience wouldn't know. And I thought this was so awesome. Such a great scene. And then when we see Pat and Fane just stroll in and give him the Horn of Valir, very cool. Very cool. Loved it because this is what, happened in the book. And Pat and Fane became ingratiated with the High Lord Turok. So I'm interested to see, I wish he had said just one comment about I won't blow this because that's only for the Empress, but
yes,
because I think that would have been just sort of a nice little cherry on top there just to sort of make that connection again. But we got little bits and pieces of that. Overall, what were your thoughts on that scene?
So overall, I thought that this scene was really good. I enjoyed, you could tell that Turok had the affinity for the older objects there. And that's perfectly in line with his book character. One of the things that I thought was very funny was seeing the physical manifestation of the Shan-Chan manipulating things while they have those long fingernails. Because those long fingernails that Sue Roth and Turok have, that is something that is used to mark Shan-Chan nobility. But it's what's the practical purpose of these things? Because you see Turok struggling to open the box. He has to hold his 2 fingers up with his long fingernails going other ways and use his 3 other fingers to manipulate and open the box up since he can't do it. It just was a little thing that made me giggle seeing him operating with those long fingernails. And then just to watch Sue Roth have her nails and her status as a high lady in the Shan-Chan society just straight up murdered there. That was pretty cool. And the symbology of what that actually meant was huge, because that just shows how much she messed up in the eyes of Turok, in the eyes of the Empress, and it was a big blow to her in her status.
Yeah. And yeah, I did think it was kind of interesting that she looked over at Ishamael before answering Turok, because I mean, I was expecting Turok to sort of say something or do something to Ishamael there, since it's like, why do you need his permission to talk to me?
Yeah.
I'm your High Lord.
Right? It's like, who is he? Why are you looking to him? You look at me.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, we did get later on that he's sort of playing this Padan Fane role that Padan Fane had in the book, where Padan Fane was there and he knew them and all this. So there, it's interesting how they're melding that together, and it does make sense that Ishamael would be there, because he does face
Rand in the sky eventually. But
yes, and I love that we got that later on in the episode. He was talking about that, and I'm like, yes, this is great. I don't mind that they're taking a slightly different route to get there, but they're getting there.
One of the things that is kind of interesting, and I want to bring this up while we're talking about Padan Fane, because we're not going to talk about him again for a bit here, is his role seems to be so much more diminished in the show, and he seems to be more of just like your run-of-the-mill dark friend, as opposed to what he was in the books, at least for now. We'll see if that changes.
And that's the thing.
But yeah,
I think that's going to shift, because I think if they follow the books at least to the point where Ishamael sort of disappears for a while, I think Padan Fane's going to take that void.
Agreed.
That's sort of my thought process there, because we haven't even got to the fact that Padan Fane nailed up the Murdral yet. And so I'm interested to see if they're like, he sort of starts shifting his perspective, or he becomes more prominent in a lot of ways.
Yeah. I do agree with you that it's going to take the downfall of Ishamael for him to step out and be in more of a prominent role, but I think it might be coming.
Yeah. I do too. It'll be really interesting to see. I also wonder, though, because they've sort of set it up in this episode where Moiraine tells Rand later on, after they're running away from Lanfear's corpse, which resurrects itself, obviously, that Ishamael woke her up, and he's going to wake up the other Forsaken, and if he does that, then, there's no chance of winning the last battle when it comes.
So I want to bring that up. I'm glad you brought that up, because I wanted to bring up my biggest qualm with this episode. Even though I did really like this episode by and large, I didn't like that Moraine's told Rand, it's your fault. You let Ishamael out. You set him free by destroying the seal there.
Well, she can't lie, but she could have said that a different way.
I know, and I just think the fact that as book readers, we know that Ishamael has been out in this world. Ishamael has been active for centuries. That she's laying this blame on Rand, or at least that the showrunners are letting her put this blame on Rand. It just doesn't go and sit right with me. To me, it minimizes the power that Ishamael and the Forsaken have, that they needed someone else to set them free.
Now, I don't disagree with you on that aspect, and that's an interesting perspective. I didn't really think about it that way. I took it as she's working with the limited knowledge she has. And also, too, as we know, Moiraine likes to have control over people.
Yeah.
And by saying this, she's sort of getting Rand to be like, oh, shit, I did something wrong. I'm going to need help. Moiraine, you're going to help me because you know all this
White
stuff.
Tower,
I guess
guide
I'll help
me.
you. Yeah. Yes, exactly. And so I think, too, there's that manipulation aspect, which is good because, again, this is going to feed into their sort of back and forth relationship.
Yes. Yeah.
So, and it's really interesting because they did speed up things in this episode. They're explaining a lot of lore, like you said, including Teleron Riad.
Yes. And I love that we got the name
and
drop.
Compulsion.
Yeah, Compulsion too.
Oh,
yes.
So much good, so many things. Oh, it's just so great.
Yes.
All right, we gotta
keep
focus
moving,
ourselves. All right, so let's just keep going with the I mean, it interweaves in this episode so nicely.
Yes.
I think we can talk about Perrin and sort of get that aspect out of the way,
Okay.
because that sort of is on the side. So let's go that way. So in this episode, we get Perrin talking with Elias, and Elias is like, oh yeah, your eyes are going to turn golden, you're going to be one of us, yada yada. And Perrin realizes that, oh, you're not leading me to find Loyal and my friends or the Shanarans, you're leading me in the opposite direction. He's like, yeah, you don't want to die, do you? They're not your pack. We're your pack.
Yeah.
And he kind of threatens Elias, yells at him, and then all the wolves kind of show up like, yeah, you want to bark at our boy? We'll bite you back. And so Perrin sort of leaves. Hopper joins him, which I loved.
Me too.
Thought that was so nice. And Perrin then goes back to the little fishing village to presumably release Uno from being in a...
To bury Uno's corpse. Because right now...
And he doesn't...
It's
he's not successful with that.
Yeah, it's in a cage hanging around. He's like, I can't leave him like that. I got to go back and bury him.
Yeah. And spoiler, he does.
Yeah.
The white cloaks are there now. They've expelled the Shanchan, or the strangers. Loved this. Thought this was a great little way to tie them in. Mm-hmm. Interested to see if we get Bornhold's father.
I know, I was thinking the same thing. I was like, oh, we're tying in Dane Bornhold already. Okay.
Yeah. Which makes more sense. You're going to make him more of an antagonist with Perrin as we move forward. Mm-hmm. And this is already sowing the seeds of that. Right? So I'm interested because this kind of takes the storyline from the first book with the White Cloaks and Perrin and ties it into what happens here in the second book as well. So I think that was a nice way to sort of wrap that together. But he ends up, instead of Gaul, he ends up freeing Aviendha, who we meet. And Dylan, I can't tell you how much I liked her. I thought she was such a badass. The fight scene was great.
Yes.
Yes. In her humor and stuff afterwards, I really enjoyed. I thought that was good. I thought it was showing her personality, kind of showing that I yield humor a little bit. My initial reaction to her was a little like, but as I said, afterwards, after they fought the White Cloaks, they got out of there. I thought her at the campfire with Perrin, I really like that. And I like that they're going to be kind of friends because that is going to help her character grow too.
So what I did love about Aviendha is I loved her introducing some of the Aiel concepts, such as like Toe. And I loved the Aiel sense of humor of dancing the spears and like playing Maiden's Kiss. And I think she mentioned that at least. I'm not positive, but...
I
don't know. Anyways, but I liked her sense of humor, kind of. What I didn't really like about it was her making overtly sexual jokes to Perrin, because Aviendha would never have done that in a million quadrillion years. And I think like just her saying, hey, Perrin, you want to bang? That was a little stupid. And because Aviendha would never have said that, ever. I'm a little sad we're not getting Gaul. But
we'll get him.
I don't think we will.
I'm pretty sure we will.
Yeah?
I think the reason they are swapping Gaul for Aviendha is so we get more Aviendha.
Maybe. That would make sense because she is much more important to the story. No offense to Gaul, but Aviendha is an amazing character and I like her a lot, so I'm happy to be getting more of her. I do think... yeah, go ahead.
I just want to say this. I think maybe... they'll bring Aviendha and Nynaeve and them together sooner. So that's also building that relationship as they go forward.
So what I was going to say is, like, I do think that what's going to be going on with Aviendha and Perrin, as far as, like, her being friends with Perrin and everything, might have an impact on her story later in the series. But I'm really curious, like, if we're going to still get Perrin... or not Perrin, if we're still going to get Aviendha doing some of the training she does later on and that struggle she faces of who she is once the book and the series progress. But I don't know. I think that Aviendha was great. I just didn't really care for her sense of humor around the campfire with Perrin.
I mean, remember too, this is like for adults. So
I know. I mean, we had Rand sleeping with Egwene already. We had Rand sleeping with Lanfear. We're having
because some of that stuff just didn't make sense. The other maidens were all pretty open about it, so it didn't really make sense for her not to be.
I think it just was like your relationship as a maiden with your weapon, basically, versus a wise woman who settles down and all that stuff.
That's fair.
Aviendha thought of herself as a woman.
There's no settling down for her.
No.
But anyway, so that's kind of the end of that story. They're heading to Falma.
Yes.
All roads lead to Falma. That's what we said last time.
So I am happy to see that, because I do think that does symbolize that we're going to end at a similar place at the end of this season as we ended at with the end of book 2.
Yeah. And I'm just scared because I'm pretty sure that if Hopper doesn't die this season, he's definitely dying next season. But it's coming. I know it's coming. And I know it's probably going to be at the hands of the White Cloaks.
Yep.
So,
yep.
Yeah. So sad about that. Anyway, let's get into now the White Tower storyline. Because this all kind of goes together. Well, we should actually do Moiraine and Rand and then do the White Tower.
Sure, yeah, let's do that.
Because the White Tower is the biggest piece. So Moiraine and Rand running away from Lanfear. We already talked about them having that conversation about the escaped Forsaken. And so, in this episode, we get to see them heading back to Caemlyn. Not Caemlyn,
Cairhien.
Sorry. Cairhien. We get them heading back to Cairhien, duping Lanfear believing that they were going to Tar Valon, chasing after them. We see her murder people pretty much just on a whim.
We get to see Lanfear unchained and just blowing people's heads up, making people's mouths disappear, being a vengeful witch, basically. Yeah,
and so that kind of runs into, that's sort of showing Moraine's point about her being cruel. Also, too, as Moiraine says, she didn't turn over to the dark until Lewis Theron met his wife and broke up with her and broke her heart, effectively. And so she joined the dark to get him back. So it shows that she's obsessed with him. And you get that through this episode. You also get to see that she is a master of Teleron Riyadh, which is the world of dreams. And we get this twofold. One, when Moiraine tells Rand about it, we pop into Ashamael's dreams, and it looks like he's about to make out with Rand. But it's actually...
that was a jarring scene, to be honest. I was like, what is happening here?
I knew immediately that it was dreams.
Yeah, of course.
And I was like, hey, if they want to make him bisexual, who cares, right? Who cares? I was like, doesn't really faze me. But I was like, I know this is Lanfear. And he probably knows it's Lanfear too and doesn't care. When you live for that long, I'm sure it's just like, get it where you can. Anyway, their interaction's interesting. He's asking her what she thinks about him, talks about how she's the master of dreams. She's just like, I'm just waiting around until he shows up, which I like. Like, I'm just hanging out in your dreams. Just hang out in your dreams. It's really setting up nicely for this concept of the dreaming being this place that people do things in. And I hope we do get in the next episode, and I know you've watched it, so you know, some consequences. Like, if you get hurt there, that can affect you in the real world, etc., etc., that kind of stuff, because it's going to start showing the power of it. So, we have this interaction between Ashamael and Lanfear. He basically brings up the point that she's weak around Rand. She has a soft spot for him. Right. And they sort of discuss that.
I do also like that they bring up some of the other Forsaken. Like, she brings up Grendel, she brings up the boys. And so it's going to be interesting to me, like, how many of the Forsaken actually make their way into the show here, because I don't think we're going to get the full complement of all the Forsaken that we do in the books, but it's going to be interesting to see how many get cut. Like, I could totally see Asmodean getting cut. I could totally see probably Semirhage getting cut as well, and having her and Grendel being merged a little bit, or Lanfear getting merged with one of them as well. But I don't think we're getting all of the Forsaken that we get within the series, and probably for good reason, just time-wise and repetitiveness as well. Like Rabin versus Samael, I don't know if that will be the same person or,
Who knows? It will be interesting to see who all gets brought in, because you're right. They could replace other characters with characters they already have, or with the Forsaken themselves. Mm-hmm. Or they might just be like throwaway characters, which is fine too, because some of them honestly were.
Yeah, some of them were throwaway characters. They lasted less than a chapter.
Yeah. But anyway, that's kind of it for her story, except at the very end of the episode, we have Rand getting pulled into Teleron.
Well, that's actually a point I want to talk about real quick.
Into Teleron Riyadh. The minute he falls asleep, he's attached to this wheel, and she's sitting in this chair like, I've been waiting for you.
Well, so I want to bring up what Moraine says before that. So Moraine's having this conversation with her family, and they're saying how Moraine used to help out her younger sister by telling her, like, walking her through these scenarios, being like, is this true? And, like, walking through, like, her fears and, like, trying to have her calm down by, like, posing worst case scenario questions and saying, like, is this actually true? Is this actually going to happen? And so Moraine says that Rand needs help protecting himself. And then her sister's like, is this true? Does he actually need this? Then Moraine sits there, thinks to herself for a second, and then she's like, you know what? It's not. He is the Dragon Reborn. The Dragon Reborn is powerful AF, so let's see what he's got. So she goes, and she's like, all right, Rand, go to sleep. Make a deal with the devil, or make a deal with Lanfear, basically. See what she wants. You have the power. You've got this. And as soon as Rand falls asleep, of course, Lanfear has her, like, hooks in his dream ball right there and pulls him right to her. And so he wakes up strapped onto the wheel there for the end of the episode. But I thought it was interesting because you see Moraine being like, you know what? He does have power. He can take care of himself. Let me not worry about sheltering him as a stilled or shielded Aes Sedai from this master Forsaken, and, like, just let him face his own demons. And we'll see how that goes in next episode.
Yeah. I'm going to be interested to see. I also would really like to see if they bring in the old Lewis Theron to kind of give him some
I would love to see
tidbits or input here.
Like almost what is it? Like almost like a soliloquy almost of the older Lewis Theron kind of like talking to Rand, like within like his own like dreamscape world. Like having a conversation with with Rand's dream self or something like that, like playing off each other.
That would be cool. Would be cool. So I think we've wrapped up nicely the Moraine Rand and the Perrin Avienda. Matt did not make an appearance this episode.
He did not, no.
Nor did Min. So it'll be interesting to see. I'm pretty sure they're going to Falma too. But let's focus on the White Tower, friends. So we have two things kind of going on in this episode. We have Varen showing up to the tower after the girls have been kidnapped by Leandrin and taken through the ways. We find out that Leandrin is a dark friend.
Mm-hmm.
That
100%
been exposed.
Confirmed.
And Varen is snooping around trying to figure out where the girls are. And they basically bring up the fact that when they go to talk to Shiriam, the Mistress of Novices, which you saw the switches.
Mm-hmm. I did.
That's funny. She knows something's not right. Shiriam just seems to kind of be like almost... I like that they had her sort of acting kind of weird, right?
Yeah.
It was great.
She was definitely rattled that Varen was asking some questions.
Yeah. And they were like, yeah, it seems like she was under compulsion. And I wondered about the lying bit because she believed it. So it's like she was told that and told to believe it.
So I think that it's pretty interesting. We're getting a look at Detective Varen over here because you know exactly what she's doing. She's rooting out the Black Aja. She's doing her own detective work right here, trying to catch Leandrin in a lie, trying to catch Shiriam in a lie, and like trying to see what is going on, who can she trust, and seeing that Shiriam's handwriting is different at this part, and wondering if that's because of compulsion. That is something that we don't get in the books, but it's alluded to that Varen was doing her own like digging to see who was Black Aja or what was going on in the tower here. So the fact that we got to see it in action was pretty cool. Not the biggest fan, to be honest, of the alcoholic Brown sisters. And I just thought, again, like, all they seem to want to do is make Aes Sedai drink and have sex in the show, which is definitely different approach to Aes Sedai. But, yeah.
I do like that they were really nerdy, though.
They were very nerdy.
That came across, and I love that. That's Brown Aja.
Through, and that's totally Brown Aja. And I also liked how Varen was, like, focused in, and then she's like, oh, what about this book? And, like, kind of did, like, that typical, like, Brown Aja switch to, like, absent-mindedness, kind of shifting focuses onto her studies and her books and stuff. And it was all a ploy to, like, use that aloofness that the Brown Aja has associated with it as a weapon to get Shiriam away from her book so her other Brown sisters could go in and help find it out. And we got to see Chao Chang.
Yes, we did get to see Chao Chang. So that's kind of, I mean, Leandrin, we then kind of cut into Leandrin delivering the three girls to the Seanchan.
Yes, to Suroth and the Shamael.
Yeah. Well, Shamael's not there.
Yes. Yeah, you're right.
And this was kind of cool because during the cave scene, or the Ways scene, Leandrin is almost like apologetic to Nynaeve. Mm-hmm. And so it does kind of show there's, you know, their relationship built and everything else, which I liked. I did like that it wasn't just, I'm just handing you off. But I do like that when she does hand them off.
She does.
You get her and the other and Suroth's sort of perspective on each other, which was pretty much right from the book.
Pretty much straight from the book, yeah.
And I like that she released the shield and bindings on the
I love
girls.
That part, to be honest. That part was great. I love it because Leandrin's like, I did my part. I told the Shamael I would deliver the girls. Unshielded. Your job to keep them. Bye. And It was perfect. Loved it.
Oh, yeah. It was great. And also, too, you know, you got a hint at whatever the Seanchan does to these girls who can channel is terrible. Mm-hmm. And you still don't know, even at the end of the episode. But we're going to know. Anyway, the girls get up, they fight, they run away. Egwene gets captured. It was pretty much like it happened in the book for the most part.
It did seem a little easy for them to get away, though. I will say that.
Yeah. Oh, I'd agree. I wish there was a little bit more of a fight with the power there.
Yeah.
If we're being honest. But I liked it. I thought it was good. And then they captured Egwene. We will see her later on. But you come back to Egwene and Nynaeve coming into...
Elaine and Nynaeve
coming into Falma. They're kind of going around the streets. I thought Elaine was playing it really smart. Nynaeve not so much, which again matched the book and sort of Nynaeve's temperament. Mm-hmm. I thought it was nice. It wasn't as like Nynaeve sitting there pulling her braid, screaming, and you know. But like Elaine was like, you need to
chill,
like chill out, and we need to blend in. And she's like, oh, these are clothes that aren't fancy enough for you. Like it was kind of that childish sort of back and forth they had at the beginning of their relationship. Mm-hmm. So I thought that was good. I mean, a little annoying, but good.
I mean, honestly, they are a little annoying in the books too. So that fits.
No, Nynaeve is very annoying in my opinion, but at some parts anyway. But overall, good. They got knocked against the wall from, we find out, a warder and a yellow sister. Let's just hope it's not. Oh my gosh, what was her name in the they changed her name. Pura.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Because that would be so sad. But yeah, it's going to be, I hope we get a story about that. Like, this is the sister that got away type thing. Yeah.
But yeah, all in all,
she's going to explain, and as she's explaining, I'm sure they're going to cut to Egwene getting those things done to her.
All in all, though, I thought that this episode was very strong. There were a few things, like I said, I nitpicked about a little bit, but by and large, this episode was fantastic. I loved all the lore we were getting with it. I loved the redirection back towards, like, the book story. And this episode just made me very excited to watch what comes next. And so
Agreed.
I can't wait to do that.
I just want to add 2 little pieces here. At the end of the episode, Egwene is presented to Turok as a gift. And which I thought was interesting from Suroth, because we have Ishamael talking with Turok, and he's like, just accept her gift. And so there's some kind of strings attached with Egwene. I'm not sure what it is leading to Turok, because it seems kind of weird that he would want to do that. But
well, owning Damane was a status symbol as well. So, like, being given a powerful Damane, especially like Egwene, that is something that is, is a mighty gift, because it's not like every day they find Chandlers as powerful as Egwene is.
It's true. I just meant that I thought it was interesting. Like, I'm like, what are you up to?
Yeah. Well, it's Ishamael meddling in politics. It's what Ishamael does when he's not going crazy.
Agreed.
And I couldn't remember if that was part of this episode or next episode when Egwene actually gets collared.
It was this episode at the very end when they present her, they collar her, and you can tell it's very painful. So it's hinting at what's to come, but not quite there yet.
So what I really liked about the scene with Egwene getting collared is it looks like an actual idol.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, oh my god, why couldn't you just ignore the stupid breastplate and pacifier and just go with this thing the whole time? Because it was so much better. But when they put it on Egwene, it, like, became whole and became the entire, like, breastplate / like, choker thing. And I thought even that was a little weird. Okay. But yeah, it was okay.
It didn't have the pacifier in her mouth yet.
Right. She didn't get
gagged
yet.
That's a separate piece.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I was like, you can do it. You have the knowledge that it's supposed to be this way. It looks good when they did it the way that it originally was. But again, just my little issue with the IDOM. But it is what it is.
Yeah. All right. Overall, I love that episode too, and I'm excited to hear what's next.
Very strong episode. Can't wait to find out more about what's going on in this world's version of Wheel of Time. All right, that's going to do it for us 2 nerds. We're signing off. We'll see you next time. Goodbye.
See ya. Bye.